Hi there. Thanks so much for showing up. Here we are back at the ranch, so to speak. We're not really back at the ranch. We're exactly where we've been. Silicon Valley, California. Finally having sunshine. In fact, great sunshine, which also makes my lighting difficult in this place where I like to record. Trying my microphone today to see how that works as well. Anyway, happy to see whoever's here listening to this video, recorded video. And reminding everybody, I'm still calling this channel Work in Progress. I may always call it that because probably that's exactly what it always is. Work in Progress. So I'm going to talk about something I think is extremely important today. Just before I get started though, let me just again remind those of you that have been hearing me, I'm sorry if it's repetitive, but I kind of think this is something I have to do at the beginning since a lot of people really don't know about this channel. So what I'm hoping to be able to do is get people to, just like you and me, everyday people, to come on this channel. We'll do a Zoom conversation, I like to call it. I could call it an interview, but I think it will be more like a conversation where you, my guest, can share some of the challenges perhaps that you've been through, some things that you've learned on your life's journey. We're all on this life's journey and we're all in different phases and stages of it. I like to think of it as a book where we have, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and there's chapters in between. So we're all in different chapters on this life's journey, and we're all having our experiences and our challenges, and particularly at this time, I believe many of us are becoming more and more aware of something shifting. There is an evolution going on for the human species, and it's something I think that's important to talk about. And obviously it's being talked about a lot on YouTube and Instagram and live streaming, etc. So I'm just joining in with that group, so to speak. I think that we all have something to share, and more importantly, I think we all have something more in common. We're more alike than not alike. So that's kind of the way I want to contribute to this very, I don't know what to call it. It's challenging, it can be exciting, confusing. There's 1,000 words to describe the time we're in, but I think it's really important that each of us that possibly can or feels driven, the word isn't driven, kind of feels motivated or inspired to contribute to this time, then I'm wanting to put this platform together so you can have a voice. So my contact information is always below the video, so there you'll find a link to contact me. Let me know if you'd like to have a conversation, and I'll get back to you, and I promise I'll get back to you, and we'll go from there. So I'm just putting that out in this very moment at the beginning, because maybe you're not going to stay around till the end, who knows, but I want to put that out there right now and make myself available and this channel available to start getting into some conversations where we can help one another. That's the key. We all need right now to help one another, in my opinion. So if you're of like-minded, then reach out to me. Okay. So here's what I want to talk about today, and I'm going to start it with a question. Do you really know yourself? I mean, really intimately know yourself? I think most of us, when asked that question, we'd probably say, oh yeah, I do. Yeah, I know my good points, my bad points, my challenges, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some might say. Well, I've discovered for myself, even through just a situation I went through, we don't really know ourselves, not like we think we do. we think we know ourselves, but the truth is what we really know, depending on what lens we're looking through, and if we're looking through the what I call the thinking mind, which is the the intellect, then what we know is we know the beliefs that we've learned in growing up. We know the programs from our childhood that have been installed. We know our preferences, we believe. We know our backgrounds, etc., and we turn them into stories, right? But is that really knowing who we are? So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. And I think some of you will relate. So it's in the middle of the night, about 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, I don't remember, something like that, around 2. And I wake up and I have this situation on my mind. And in my mind, and now I'm in my intellect and my thinking mind, I'm kind of having a debate about what to do. There's a decision that I believe, or decisions that need to be made, and I'm having a debate in my mind. And the longer I'm doing that, or the more this inner dialogue goes on, I start to notice that I'm getting overwhelmed and kind of frustrated, and I can't seem to make a decision because I have this argument going back and forth about to do or not to do, and if you do this, this is what could happen, and if you do that, maybe that's what'll happen, etc. So this went on for whatever time it went on. It was a while, trust me. And we've all been there before, I know we have. But this time what happened is somehow, and it's probably from my guides because they do speak to me often, higher self, whatever you like to call it, I started to get this insight, I'll call it an insight, that, wait a minute, I'm in my thinking mind, and this is not where a decision can come from. Where would the decision come from? In my particular case, it's, from my intuition. And that would be the case for you as well. We all have our intuitive part, our part of us that's very intuitive. It's just some of us are more tuned in to that part of us than others, and it takes practice. It's not something that just shows up. So what happened is, for me, is I started to say to myself, what am I feeling? I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm trying to come up with some decisions, yada yada. But as I really said, well, what am I feeling? What's really going on? Then something inside of me started to breathe, really deep breaths, and kind of where you release the breath, like really releasing the breath and slowing everything down. Everything started to just kind of slowly kind of drop into my being. During this time, I was feeling a lot in my solar plexus. That's one of the places that I really get in touch with my feelings. And so I was very much in touch, that I was feeling this kind of discomfort in my solar plex. But while this was starting, and I kept breathing, the dialogue that had been going on, the debate, started to kind of just not be a debate, but just it was there, but not in the way that it had been. And little by little, as I was slowing things down, or I don't know it was slowing down, let me just say it that way, I had a whole different lens come up, and so to speak, a whole different way that I began to look at this so-called problem, or this the decisions I needed to make, etc. And all of a sudden, from this calmness, it was so clear about what was going on with me, which had almost nothing to do with this debate or this decision that was there. It really was the overshadowing what was really underneath. And what was really underneath was fear, real fear. And as I began to look at this fear, I actually started to have a dialogue with this fear. It may sound crazy, but listen, whatever it takes to get through this is important in my mind. So the fear was coming from a place of, how do I want to call it, an old place, of a familiar, a fear of this. If I do this, what will people think? If I do that, the fear was speaking to me. And as I kind of dialogued with this fear, I said to myself, wow, I am so tired of coming from fear and making my decisions based on the fear. Now, many times when we go through this, let me say, we're not aware of the fear. We're just aware of the very surface. We're not aware of what's going on underneath. So we begin to make our decisions and decide and get frustrated and get overwhelmed based on what's going on up here. But when you really get in there, like I did the other night, and I really began to see this was coming from fear, from old beliefs, from ways that maybe I'd even thought I'd worked through, which was like, well, what will people think? Or like, as if people really care, right? We think people think about what we do, but it's in our mind, it's a program. And that was just one piece of it. And so the deeper I went into this fear, the more all of a sudden compassion, empathy, I started feeling for this entity called fear. I saw her, was a her, as this part of me, this entity, let's call it, this thing I was identifying with, this fearful, actually probably young girl. And she basically was saying, I'd like to be released from this. I've been spending all my life and your life, we've been spending together, and now you're seeing it, and I really am worn out as well. And I was exhausted, she's exhausted from living from this fear, because it's not fulfilling, and it's a belief, a program, whatever we want to call it, that no longer serves me, but I keep using it in that sense, or I keep it alive because I'm not digging deep enough. So this is really digging down to the very root of the problem. And when we dig down to the very root of this thing that started out with me as just some decision making, we begin to see the way that this works, and the way that we use the intellect, or what I call the thinking mind, in a way it can't be used. It's not made to be used that way. The thinking mind is made to be used to do math, or to figure out your grocery list, or compare at the grocery store. Maybe, is this a better deal or that a better deal? And I'm not even good at math, so that's a challenge there. Again, I want to mention that, I happen to have lived my life a lot. I don't know, but it just is through my intuition. So I tend to look weird to other people, particularly my husband. When he first met me, and I think still today at times, he goes, I don't get it. Because I'm not a planner in the sense, or I don't behave or have that same certain way as others sometimes, because when you come from your intuition, it's not always making sense it's not making sense to the thinking mind. So if you're dealing with someone that uses their thinking mind, like my husband does for most of the things, and he's not really into the feelings, he has to really work on getting into the feelings, then it's not making sense. So let me give you just kind of a quick example. I don't want to talk a whole lot of story here because and I'm going to do quite a few videos on this whole idea because I think it's absolutely valuable today. But just to give a kind of real simple example, this wasn't what was going on the other night for me, but this also goes on. It just went on recently. So my husband, so we are home all the time together. So it's not like we're out at an office or he's out at the office. We're home. We're not going to offices to work or anything like that. So so for food wise, this is where this example I want to give you. We tend to plan. Well, okay, what are we going to have this week for dinner? This is more about him. It's not I'm not that kind of planner, so it's always challenging for me. And so the deal's been like for me to say, well, what are we going to make for dinner so that when we go to the store this week, we know what we're buying so for the dinners that we're going to make. And I have to tell you, I suffer and struggle making this menu up. In fact, I just hate it. It's like it's not coming from a natural place. It's not me. Yet I agree. It sounds very reasonable. It sounds a good way to, have things in order, and you're not all of a sudden going, oh my God, now I don't have this for dinner, and you have to run to the store the last minute. So happens we're very close to our stores, and particularly Trader Joe's, which we tend to like. But the point being is there's this planning that has to happen if you're going to plan off a menu like we've been doing for quite some time now, particularly as COVID kicked in. That became even more important because we were ordering our groceries online and going to pick them up, so it wasn't like you were in the store and so forth. So I think that kicked in an even more need to plan. And it's very hard for me to argue, well, why do we have to plan? Why can't we just say, whoa, what do you want for dinner tonight? Whoa, we don't have that. Okay, and then you have to go to the grocery the last minute. So the planning to a normal person makes total sense, right? It's a good idea. But for me, it's not. It's really a struggle. So anyway, we've come up with this to try this out as an experiment. To see how we could manage so we could both have what we need. Now, I'm not a foodie. I'm not that much into food. In fact, my husband does most of the cooking oftentimes and the grocery shopping. He used to do all the time. We've been, since we are home now and all, we go more together. I feel I need to support in some way. Anyway, what we are going to do as an experiment is he can plan for him, and I'm going to plan, but in a way that gives me a whole bunch of flexibility. So for me, it's more to buy stuff that I can stick in the freezer, so I can just kind of make up my mind that night. Now, again, it's an experiment, so we don't really have things well thought out here. But we went to the store today, and I knew certain things that I wanted. And he knew what he was going to plan for his dinners, and we figured out, okay, we eat together, but we can just try to see if there's a way I can have what I want, he has what he wants, and see how that works out. And because I tend to be a people pleaser and I cope and adapt a lot, and because I'm not a foodie, I've for a long time now just say, okay, it's no big deal. Who cares? Just eat what you want to eat. But I have to say, I go through two things. One, having to make this menu up, which is a real difficult thing for me. And two, a lot of times just feeling worn out or dragged out or not interested in this way that we're eating. But I just keep doing it because coping and adapting. So I believe that's what's going on for me. There's a shift going on, and I'm kind of waking up to some of my own needs and seeing how I can take responsibility for that. It's the best way to say it. So that's just a simple example, but I mean, it sounds very simple, but it really shows me who I am underneath it all, and why I tend not to, how do I want to say, express myself that way. Now, on many other areas, I'm very much about standing up for what I want. I've never been a doormat type person. So I think it varies with the situation. But it's amazing how many years this has gone on with my husband and I've just kind of adapted, and then I complain about what we're eating, and he's very in the logical mind and tries to say, well, then what do you want exactly, and when do you want it exactly? And I don't have it exactly because I operate out of my intuition, which isn't exactly. It just happens, it flows, it happens. And it's my happy place when I can be in my intuition. Through all my working years and all the different businesses I've been in, it was my intuition that was always on board, not me trying to figure out something in my intellect. That's not my good place. So, and when and by not being in there, I feel less creative. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just not a good place for me outside of my intuition, and yet I see it as a challenge for another person that doesn't come from that place. So my hopefully what I would like to motivate or inspire some of you to do is when you're having, figure out when you're going through a process of a decision making, or maybe you're upset with something that's going on, maybe something got triggered but you're not aware of it. When you're in that conflict and you're kind of on the, of this debate in your mind and nothing really gets settled and you feel overwhelmed and frustrated and on the hamster wheel, whatever, is a good time if you can become aware, and maybe you can become aware just from this conversation today. What am I feeling? That's the first question to ask yourself. What am I feeling? Now, if you're not taking the time to take the breaths, then you're going to just get an answer from the intellect, and it's not going to be the right, fulfilling, or correct answer. So if what I'm saying is, when you first of all become aware and try to catch yourself in the dilemma, in the back and forth thing, whether it's 3 in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, doesn't matter. And see if you can get there. And then start to breathe, deep breaths. And it takes quite a few breaths really to start to slow down and start to feel yourself slowing down. And remember, you're looking for a feeling. The conversation or the debate is not a feeling. It's nothing but more than just repeating your beliefs or programming that you've had since you were a child. That's all it is. It's just BS, really. And it never gets you where you want to go. So you slow down. And as you really slow down, I can promise you, if you can get there, what comes up is awesome. It's amazing, because what comes up is the truth of who you are. The truth. This is where you discover who you really are, because whatever it is, it comes up in a very clear, very, very clear, no doubt, no argument, clear way of understanding what's really going on with you. And then a solution or a decision or whatever it is comes out of that, because now it's coming from a place of truth. You see, the intellect isn't really the place of truth. It's just factual of, like I said, it's there to do certain things. So I'm not saying we don't need the intellect, but it's limited in what it's there to do. It should be limited. So you use it for what you need to use it for. But if you can get to your feelings, and this is the key, and this is what a lot of people don't want to do. I get it. It's not feel good. It didn't. The fear that I was feeling in my solar plex was very uncomfortable, very, very uncomfortable. But the reward of doing this is, as you work through the process, you get this relief and you begin to really understand yourself on a very intimate level. I mean, I'd never had this experience where I really saw the fear as a her entity, and I had such compassion for her because she's saying, I'm exhausted, I'm tired of being in this thing. I'd like to be released. I'm out of this. And, everything's energy. So the release means release the energy. And we'd both be free. Now, just because I had this experience doesn't mean, oh, okay, check that off, good. Now I don't have to worry about that. No, it's just the beginning, really. But it's a huge beginning because I see this and I now have also a way to become much more aware and catch myself when I'm in this kind of overwhelming, by the way. Yeah, overwhelming. If you're a person that can really notice when you're overwhelmed and frustrated is another good clue. These are clues. These are ways that you can actually get in touch with that idea of, okay, I'm in my thinking mind. It's not going to go anywhere because it's just going to be whatever beliefs that are not true, or I live by these beliefs, but they're not really who I am. So when you can get in touch with that, then that's when you can actually let go of being stuck. It really is. It's like being stuck in mud, and your wheels are just rolling in the mud and you can't get out. It's so much of a huge insight, and feels so good to get that clarity as you move through it, that I believe that when this happens, we're more motivated and more desirable of working through our problems or issues or whatever's in that way. But again, it takes practice. And it takes practice because if you really know who you are, you know that you don't like to feel the icky feelings, right? Makes sense? Nobody wants to really feel that, the fear and the anger and the frustration and all these not so good feelings. But it's through the feelings that we wake up and can move through even the most challenging situations through the feelings, not through the intellect. So hopefully this is making sense. And again, I want to keep talking about this in different videos because it is a biggie. It really is. And particularly right now, 2023, we're in challenging times. That's no kidding. And the more that we can do to help ourselves, we actually will help others. And again, this is, why I have this sense that if we can gather together, just regular people like you and me, and have these discussions, it can help others through that, and those others will help others, and that's really what we need to be doing now, is helping one another, not having the divide. This divide will end what could be a good thing. I think nothing is more important right now than getting in touch with, we are in a very opportune time. We're here on this earth. We chose to be here during this time. And for each and every one of us, I think that we are responsible for contributing in all the different ways that we can to this evolutionary process that we're in. And not to be preaching how something should be, but rather than that, to have a discussion of the challenges. I mean, there's no limitation of challenges right now, whether it be the drugs that are such a big problem, the unhappiness, the suicides that are taking place, even amongst celebrities, among kids and their teens, among so many. Why? Because they feel there's no place to go. It's hopeless. And I get it. I get how that can be felt. So if we could look at the broader spectrum of things, at the whole, instead of our just little teeny narrow life that's going on here, not to say it's not important, because it is, but if we could gather together with the idea of, and I know I've said this before, but I haven't said it in a while, but I get this picture of the 8 billion of us sitting around a campfire, and each one telling our life journey stories in different languages, coming from different cultures, different races. All those things are different, but we're together in the fact that we want to hear one another's story, and we want to support one another in their story, in their struggles, in their challenges. Imagine what a world would be like if that had happened. Or, the other night when I was in this process, it was, my guides said, can you imagine what it would be like to live with absolutely no fear? And it was like, whoa. If you watch any or listen to any of the NDEers, the near-death experience people, so many of them say that they were able to let go of the fear, and they saw how fear was the root of their problems, and came back with all this, what they're calling love. So I couldn't, to be honest with you, I really couldn't imagine completely, other than I think it would be awesome to live without fear. I mean, what an idea. Especially when we don't have to be living with fear, but do we know that? No. I guess in my mind I'm thinking, oh no, this is how I've been living. But by getting to the root of the problem and really peeling away until I see that root of the problem, like I did the other night, that's the way through it. So I hope this hasn't sounded like a rant. Maybe it has, and if it has, maybe that's okay, whatever. Doing my best here to really communicate things that I think are of value, and hopefully you're seeing some value here as well. As always, I really hope I've helped someone. And again, I'm going to remind who's ever still here that I'd really love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your story of your journey. Let's open it up. Let's talk in ways that maybe could be very, very creative, in ways to really enhance this human race right now that's going through so much adversity, so much confusion. Let's see how we can each help each other around this campfire, so to speak. And let's see where this will take us. I mean, I have no idea. I don't know. I have, what do I want to say? I have a vision, I guess, I could say. I don't know if it's the right vision or not. It has to be an open right now. That's how I feel, to keep everything very open without having to have a complete map, because that won't work. We're all in very new territory, so to speak. So we're kind of all finding our way there through it. Okay, so I think I've said all that I can say at this point about this idea. Again, I think it's an important idea, and I'll share more about my stories. I kept it kind of simple today, but I'm always more than willing to share what's going on with me, and to discover what my inner world is, and discover really who am I really. And I think that's what this whole video started to be about, and hopefully it stayed on that, about who do you really know yourself. Can you make that a goal for yourself, to really get to know yourself? I mean, nothing's more important, really, and nothing will give you more satisfaction than truly getting to know yourself in a very intimate way. And it is through not the intellect, but through going within, getting in touch with feelings, because that's where it's at, and working from that intuitive place, which is where your guides, your higher self, whatever, however you think of it, are right now standing there so much wanting to help. Believe me, there's a whole crowd of unseen messengers, I don't know what else to call them, or unseen helpers that are on board to help all of us that are in this human experience right now. They really are there for us. We have more support and love coming in than probably ever before on this planet. So let's see what we can do with it. So again, I'll remind you that my contact information, the link is below. I promise I'll get back with you. Also, please, if you like this channel, or if you like the message, please give me a like. That would be great. And also subscribe. And then there's that little doodad next to the subscribe button. If you click on that, then you'll be alerted to when new videos are posted. Comment, love to hear some comments, so please put a comment below. If you think this video would help anybody that you know, then please share it. And let me know what you think I should be talking about, or you'd like to hear more about, or anything that you feel maybe I'm missing or whatever. I'm open to it all. I really am, and very much open to having conversations with all of you. So I'm going to get my little clicker, that clicker thing I use to turn it off, which I never know if it's going to do it in one click or 2 clicks, or who knows how many clicks. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Click.